We started this tournament with 16 professors who have been competing in this AI tournament to find which among them is the best battler. We passed through our challenges round, dropping 8, then said goodbye to 4 more in our quarterfinals, and now, so close to the end, we must first decide which 2 out of our remaining 4 professors will advance on to the finals. Professors will either be using their in-game teams or teams that I built for them, which, if you're curious on how I did so, you can find a video just here that goes over just that. Pokemon will not be holding items, and all professors have access to terrestrialization on their final Pokemon in battle. I have 2 instances of the same AI going against each other across Pokemon Showdown's Gen 9 Anything Goes rule set, where both AIs run through all their options in a matter of seconds and pick which they believe will be their best outcome to win the match. If you wish to know more about how I set up this tournament, I would recommend watching the first part in this series, which you will also be able to find in the description below. Now we reach our final 4 as we step into the semi-finals. But first, just a little bit about how each of our contestants have gotten here so far. Oak has proved himself to be quite the wise tactician. In both his battles against Professor Elm and Kukui, he has shown great patience and will happily take the battle as slowly as possible if it means he can wait for the perfect opportunity to strike. Burnett's style of battling is an interesting one, as she tends to throw away members of her team in order to set up long-term damage like hazards or by toxicking enemy Pokemon. She even does it to simply crack through the armor of her opponent's strongest walls. She has yet to make any real use of her Naganadell's ability, that of Beast Boost, so it would be interesting to see if this changes. While Sada and Rowan will soon face off against each other in mere moments, I have to say, both share a lot when it comes to battling, as we've seen both dominate back in our challenges round, with Sada sending Magnolia into an early retirement, and Rowan throwing the Roly into an eternal sleep, as both completely swapped the floor with their opponents. But both would show what would happen when they're backed into a corner, and how exactly they would bounce back. With Rowan's Mantine claiming victory over Sonia's team as his final Pokemon, completely being able to wall off any incoming damage, and then healing off whatever he needed in order to take the win. While Sada proved that if you give her an inch, she'll take out your entire team, as her Roaring Moon only needed 1 turn to set up to run through Professor Toro in our quarterfinals. So I have to say I am more than excited to see how these matches will play out, and I hope you are too, so find a seat and get comfy as we begin our semi-finals. And we have Professor Oak against Professor Burnett. Oak leading with his Gyarados as Burnett leads with her Bronzong, poisoning the Gyarados. Switching into a Metagross as Gyarados takes its opportunity to Dragon Dance. And leads with an Earthquake, bringing Metagross down to low. Metagross will go in with a Bullet Punch, but will be taken out by Waterfall. However, while Moxie procs, the Toxic will take down Gyarados, leaving both to lose their first Pokemon within turn 4. Oak brings out his Sylveon, as Burnett sends out Shuckle to Sticky Web, but then immediately brings back out Bronzong, who takes a 25% from a Hyper Voice, Toxiting the Sylveon, before getting switched out into Gengar, taking half damage from Hyper Voice, who also sets up with Toxic Spikes, before once again being taken out after immediately setting up. Shuckle comes in to immediately switch into Porygon Z as Sylveon sets up a Wish. Not enough damage is coming through from Porygon Z, meanwhile Sylveon can nearly KO Porygon Z. This Sylveon just absolutely tanking most of Burnett's team, however, is taken out by Toxic as well. Arcanine comes in to face against Naganadel, however it's immediately punished with a speed penalty and poison. Naganadel finishing off Arcanine with a Sludge Bomb, getting the speed boost from its ability as Tauros comes in. Burnett once again not taking advantage of the Beast Boost and brings out Shuckle once more. Tauros repeatedly body slamming. However, Shuckle can take the hits, setting up Stealth Rocks. Burnett now has 3 different hazards set out on the field, and Oak has no one on his team to remove them. Burnett seemingly spamming her field moves. I think maybe she's trying to get the Tauros down to as low as possible. Potentially, yep, indeed, she decided to sack her Shuckle. An interesting choice considering that she is now at the disadvantage. Never mind, as Naganadel comes in and takes out Tauros, leading this to be a 2v2. And we can really see all those penalties stack up as Naganadel takes down Executor with only 1 attack. Raichu comes in, gets hit with the Stealth Rocks, the speed penalty, and Toxic, and that will just absolutely do it after terrestrializing and being taken out by Naganadel. And now we find out who will be joining Professor Burnett in the finals as Professor Sada takes on Professor Rowan. Sada leading with Screen Tail before switching into Brute Bonnet. Rowan taking this chance to set up with Stealth Rocks before switching into Leafeon. Sada brings out Sliverwing as Leafeon Leetsies before being swapped out into Mantine. This Mantine has done some amazing plays before, can it continue it? Clearly not at this point, as Rowan continually switches, allowing Sada many opportunities to not only set up her own Stealth Rocks, but also do damage to Rowan's team. As Roaring Moon comes in, another key player within this tournament, who sets up a Dragon Dance and takes out Wormadam. Leafeon comes back in, and is also taken out by Roaring Moon. Are we seeing another potential sweep coming in? Roaring Moon taking this opportunity to Dragon Dance again as Rowan decides to rest, even though I believe he was only down by 18%. And now being left at 18%, as Sada chooses to once again set up with another Dragon Dance. Snorlax is going to come in and use Return, but it's not going to do enough damage. Rowan, you probably should have thought about doing that sooner, as now Roaring Moon is just able to slap through this entire team, landing a crit as Rowan double switches into Rotom Frost, who is immediately taken out by Acrobatics. Gallade comes out as Rowan's final Pokemon, and a complete sweep will lead Sada to join Professor Burnett in our finals. And there we have our finalists. Professor Burnett will be taking on Professor Sada next week to see who can claim the title of the strongest Pokemon professor. Both matches were certainly interesting in very different ways. Starting off with Professor Oak versus Professor Burnett, we once again saw her familiar strategy of sacrificing Pokemon in order to make way to a victory, with Gengar once again only lasting 2 turns to set up its Toxic Spikes, Metagross being sacked off to remove the highly dangerous Gyarados, and finally the questionable play of leaving Shuckle in long enough to succumb to Tauros' onslaught just to bring it down low enough for Naganadel to come in and take it out. However, we did see Burnett finally use said Naganadel's ability to sweep the rest of Oak's team. As for Rowan versus Sada though, I gotta say, I think Rowan choked throughout this entire match. He just couldn't really seem to figure out when to start making any leg room, giving Sada plenty of opportunities to not only set up with moves like Stealth Rock, but also increase her Pokemon's power, like using Roaring Moon's Dragon Dance 3 times. The most questionable play was of course when he chose his Snorlax to rest when he did. If Rowan had simply gotten the offensive there, he might have stood a chance of getting rid of Roaring Moon before it could, well, run through the rest of his team. However, that's all in the past now, as we look on ahead to next week's match as Professor Burnett of Pokemon Dream Radar takes on Professor Sada of Pokemon Scarlet. And I hope that you will all join me for that upcoming battle. If so, I would recommend subscribing so that you don't miss it when it comes out. Speaking of which, I want to give a huge thank you to all the people that have recently been supporting the channel. Honestly, I've been pretty busy with uploading these videos that I was pretty surprised to see the sudden growth, but like I said, I'm incredibly grateful. So thank you everyone for your support, and I hope to keep bringing you the content which you've hopefully been enjoying. But until next time, I'll see you in the finals, and I hope you enjoyed the show.